and destroying people.
You know, as I listen to you, something strikes me, and I'd like to throw this out for discussion or anybody who wants to answer it. You've mentioned a number of countries in which there have been oppressions and repressions, and in which man has been hateful to his brother, and in which this anger expresses itself in a demonstration of one kind or the other. What strikes me is that almost, I think, all the countries you've mentioned are countries in the Western world, countries where we know about repression and where we have an opportunity to demonstrate against them, as we've had in Washington here today. This is not really a flag-waving question of mine, but I've been a foreign correspondent for a quarter of a century. All of you gentlemen have worked overseas. It does occur to me that demonstrations of this kind could not easily be held elsewhere. And when we talk about oppression and repression, I haven't seen any march on Moscow or march on Peking. And with all the faults that we have and which we're trying to examine, wouldn't you agree it's fair that the hope of our country is that we can have demonstrations of this kind?
Well, I happened to remark to Jim Baldwin on our way down this morning. I suddenly turned, I saw these fantastic preparations going on, and I found myself saying that this is wonderful, this is horrible, this is joyous, and this is depressing, that this is the only country in the Western world, almost, I think in England it could happen, probably possibly in France.
In the whole world,
Yes, in which this could happen, a meeting like this, but it's also the only country in which it is necessary. This is the frustrating thing, that surely we can have a meeting like this today in this country, but at the same time, it is necessary in this country. You see, what to me the most important thing is that freedom, true freedom, is not given by governments. And freedom is taken by the people. And the excitement of today, in my mind, is the fact that 1 out of every 1,000 Americans was here in Washington, and that the people of America are becoming aware that this freedom to their fellow human beings, and I call them human rights, are theirs to give. The Civil Rights Bill is not as important as the fact that the people have freedom to give, and I think now will begin to give it.
Mr. Heston was about to come in on this. Earlier you said very modestly and with considerable humility that until recently you'd reserved your civil rights position for cocktail parties. That's no longer true. Would you expand on that first?
I'm afraid I have very little to expand in terms of direct action beyond my participation in the most moving events of today. But I would, to some extent, disagree, at least as I understood Josen Marlin's point. The prime thing I extracted from today's events was a quite hopeful and stirring feeling of for the future, and also a restatement of the principles on which this country was founded. Dr. King said most eloquently that now seems finally to be the time when the check which the Negro American has presented so often and had returned to him marked insufficient funds may at last be on the verge of being cashable, and in terms of equality with his fellow Americans. But as an American, I am as stirred by the fact that this is true as I am by whatever capacity I have to empathize with my Negro fellow citizens in their eloquent cry that it finally happened now. And I cannot forget that, as you suggested, this is a country and a system of government that was, however tardy we are in extending freedom to all its citizens, we conceived the idea of freedom for all citizens under the law. And among the many eloquent things that were said today, James Baldwin has written as eloquently as anyone on this subject, but most of the men who have written on civil rights and spoken on it trace back what they speak about to the statements made by Lincoln and Jefferson. And although the end is not yet, as Harry suggested, this is perhaps a beginning, and the times ahead are just as difficult as the times behind, although in a different way.
Where do we go from this beginning? The tremendous energy churned up here, of course, is a motivating force, but it's vague, it's diffuse, unless the plan of action causes people to really correct in fact, and not only in oratory. Will this tremendous outburst now lead to a course of action, Mr. Belafonte, that
I feel
speed
that
up?
the now that we speak of is not a now that describes a success or fulfillment of the issues and the grievances that face the Negro people. The now is a statement that from here on in there's a point of no return, that there is success or there is utter failure. There is no middle of the line. There is no compromise on the issue. The now that is being spoken about is the fact that in 100 years, finally, through whatever the causes have been in history, and most of them have been because of oppression, the Negro people have strongly and fully taken the bit in their teeth. They're asking absolutely no quarter from anyone. Even the hand that is extended in terms of brotherhood and friendship to the white citizens who want to participate, it is for them to make the choice to accept, because they intend to move without it. And that, and I don't mean to say that the black community is not a community that does not have responsibility in this current revolution, but I do say that the bulk of the interpretation of whether this thing is going to end successfully and joyously or is going to end disastrously lays very heavily with the white community. It lays very heavily with the profiteers. It lays very heavily with the vested interests. It lays very heavily with a great middle stream in this country of people who have refused to commit themselves or even have the slightest knowledge that these things have been going on. And those who have decried demonstrations and who have said the Negro is going too far, they are the ones who in fact are being provoked the most by this, because for the first time, and it is only throughout demonstrations, that they have come to a level of consciousness. And in this now that we speak of, it is this point of no return, because we are on the march, and there is going to be no return from it, because the march in Washington's day is one thing, but it doesn't end there. There are going to be marches again, and there are going to be marches in the local villages and in the local cities, and in the it's not just in the South, it's in the North, it's all over.
Mr. Baldwin, we heard Mr. Belafonte talking about point of no return. I've seen every head here nodding when he said that. He also mentioned responsibility, and I think that everybody has demonstrated that in Washington today. But Dr. King, who has fought in the name of nonviolence, love, and brotherhood, also talks about a dream he has. We heard this eloquent statement of the great dream that even in Alabama, we're going to accomplish this. You're not a prophet, you're a novelist, but novelists very often see into the future. Do you share the dream? You think it will be achieved?
I think we all at this table, and many more people than that, share that dream. When Martin said that he dreamed of a country in which his 4 children would not be penalized because of their color, all of us believe that. I think we're all committed to that. It is perhaps paradoxical, but it's the American Negro in this context who, on the basis of the evidence, has the most faith in this country. I myself have always, no matter how bitter I became, believed, as Harry puts it, in the potential of this country, in the tremendous energy here, and the things that we can achieve, if we will. The importance of today, in my mind, is that for the first time in our history, and the first time in 100 years, the nation shows some signs of really dealing with its central problem, instead of, as it has done for 100 years, avoiding it, evading it, denying it, lying about it, pretending it did not exist. The country will have to now go to work, and very hard work, very dangerous work, to change itself, to achieve this dream that Martin was talking about. And if we do not achieve this dream, we have no future at all.
Do you believe we will achieve it?
I certainly believe it. I certainly believe it.
In a nonviolent manner?
But yes, I believe that too. But it is going to cost us, every single one of us, including everyone here and everyone in this country.
I'm not quite so prepared to say that it will not be achieved without violence, because the Negro people have conducted themselves nonviolently. The 200,000 people that were there today, there were many predictions, and one could take book on whether there would be a display of violence by all the extreme factions and whatnot. But the truth of the matter is that the people who came to that gathering today were people in great